Welcome to the Three Padres and a Shepherd podcast, where three North Dakota Lutheran pastors and a real-life shepherd combine serious theology with fun laughter. This is a podcast from the local church and for the local church. However, the local churches of these three pastors do not take any responsibility for the banter, foolery, and assertions that will follow. Welcome to the Three Padres and a Shepherd podcast.
Welcome to Three Padres and a Shepherd podcast. Today we take up the topic of marriage. Yes, marriage under the cross or marriage under culture. In other words, where has the church begun to misunderstand marriage by adopting the expectations and the worldview of the culture rather than receiving marriage as it is given to us in the Word of God? Stick around. In this episode, we're going to do some good old-fashioned myth busting, exposing the false cultural assumptions about marriage that have quietly crept into the church and in many cases have been baptized as if they were true. Hey guys, how's it going?
Can I translate your intro?
Yeah, do it.
I got problems and you people are going to hear about them.
Yeah, we're going right at it. I'm looking forward to this. We kind of threw this together last minute and as we were kind of contemplating, I'm like, this will be kind of fun, do some myth busting.
Well, let's switch this around though. Usually you ask us how we're doing. How are you doing?
Me?
Oh, that's so compassionate of you, Brademeyer.
I know.
Man.
Don't ever accuse me of that again.
Man, I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm a sprained ankle, which is not happy, so I have to tape it for taekwondo and jiu-jitsu. Hey, by the way, I want to announce this. I went jiu-jitsu on Tuesday night. I take jiu-jitsu, and it's not I do it a couple times a week. I like it. I'm not really good at it, but I went against Matthias. Matthias joined, and we went all out. We rolled. And so when you roll, that means you go full throttle. Guess who put an arm bar on the young lad? Right here. Now, I've been doing it a year longer than him. He's only been doing it a few months. So it won't last long. So in about 2 months from now, he'll just destroy me. So but I was pretty proud of that. Pretty proud that I took the young man and submitted him in an arm bar, but it won't last long. I don't know, maybe he was going easy on me. He didn't tell me, probably. So
sons do want to, not cripple their fathers, it turns out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus he knows you've got weak ankles.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is what it is. Okay, so the rest of you guys, what's going on? Anything new, Bo?
It's getting to be spring. It's going to be nice today. We haven't been nice for a little while. It's like the fourth spring we've had. It seems like it keeps thawing and getting sloppy, and then the water goes away, and then it snows some more. But the sheep are shorn. It won't be long. We'll be calving. Next time we have this conversation, we'll be in the middle of lambing and calving. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Neudorf.
Yes.
What's going on?
What do you mean?
Show us something.
Yeah. Like, what's going on? What do you got for us this
Entertain
month?
us.
Entertain us. Yeah. Go.
I don't have anything to show this morning.
You have said this lie more than once. I do not believe you.
It's not a lie. I don't have anything to show.
A bag of Cheetos or something around there.
Well, had I known, I would have brought some show and tell. Good grief.
Yeah. No, I love it. I like Neudorf. What's going on? And we all pause. We're like, wait. The
hang on a second.
Hang on.
If I have to show one thing, it'll be this. That's my wife and me at my ordination. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, we were so young.
I was going to say you've aged pretty well, all things considered.
Yes, I have.
How many years, Neudorf, since ordination?
It was 2011.
2011. Okay.
So 15 years.
15. Yeah.
And so that's from my ordination, and then was that a Freudian slip? And then this is from I think like 5-6 years ago. So it took.
Boy, I would have guessed 1995.
So, my daughter is wearing a vest from Kratz Creatures, where they transform into different animals, and she got that vest when she and my wife went to a live show by the Crept brothers in Davenport. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool depending on your perspective, I guess.
My boys really got into that show when they were younger.
It's a neat show aside from the environmental foo-foo stuff. Don't eat animals and stuff like that.
It's on PBS, of course. There's going to be foo-foo stuff.
They have land acknowledgments on Molly of Denali.
Do they really?
Yeah, it's sickening.
So the question I have about land acknowledgments is, how far back do we have to go before we've done due diligence on this? Like, do we get to just say the people that were here previous to us, or do we have to go back to the people before them or the people before those people? Like,
the people that were slaughtered to give way to the people whose acknowledgement we're giving now. And why do we make the acknowledgement and then not immediately surrender the land to those we stole it from?
Because righteousness is cheap, apparently, and all you have to do is say the right words to feel good about yourself.
Yeah. If any of our listeners, viewers, don't know what a land acknowledgement is, I guess you can Google it. But it's if you're giving a presentation and you're a bleeding heart liberal, and you're talking about the habits of endangered owl species on this property or something, then you start by saying, first, I want to acknowledge that this land originally belonged to the Wanapi Huhu, who themselves stole it from the Ochigawa, and so on. And so it's a way of acknowledging that we stole this land from its rightful conquerors.
I think they call that conquering, don't they? Right? Like if we stole it from those who stole it from others, doesn't that just make us the most recent conquerors of said land?
That's true. So the tribes conquer it from each other, but we steal it from them.
Well, that's because you're white. So,
because we're white. That's right.
Finally arriving.
That's a can of worms.
Radimer, how are you doing?
I am also anticipating spring. Spring is good. Got the bees out of the shed. It hasn't quite been warm enough to get in there and do much, but it's supposed to be hot enough tomorrow that I might start working the bees. I'm going to treat them for mites and give them some pollen patties and some sugar boards. So that'll be good. And I'm hoping that a lot of them didn't die this winter, because that would be really nice. Because replacing bees in the spring gets expensive when you kill them all. And the calving has started out at my parents' place, and my sons have some heifers out there, and they've had calves already, so the boys are pretty excited about that. And my daughter is just beside herself because she loves the calvies, So that's all going good. Yeah, got spring thoughts in my head right now.
Nice. Well, we're at 8:01 now. Should we dive into this topic? Give us plenty of time to talk?
No.
Let's do it. Okay, so for this topic,
I said no because we all know that the first 10 minutes where we just argue about dumb things is what people come for. All right. And so we're cutting the true believers, the true listeners, we're cutting them short. We're depriving them of the 2 minutes that they expect and deserve.
They also expect good content. So maybe they don't. I was going to say we could disappoint them for the next hour or two.
We already disappointed them with Neuendorf not having show and tell. This is a disappointing episode.
Yeah, this episode, You know what's interesting? We had a comment from a guy in Michigan, and he's like, "Hey, just to let you guys know, I do enjoy the first 7 to 8 minutes." And so we had one YouTube criticism of the banter is just foolish and stupid. Knock it off. So then we're commenting on that, how stupid we are, and then everybody's coming to our justification and our rescue. It's like, no, we actually enjoy it. We actually enjoy it. So I think it's had the reverse effect, if you will.
Well, I think that
I got a new knife in my pocket that's very flippy here. So, and it's not this is Magna Cut steel, so it's a real knife. I don't have actual good steel fancy knives, so pretty proud of this one.
Marriage is the thing.
People you play the main event music. You can't be talking about knives after the main event music.
No, What else do I got here?
Oh, you better knock it up, or he's going to play the main event music again, and I don't want that.
I've got a quiver here for those bows right there, and I've got a variety of arrows, but it is in a raccoon sheath. So that's kind of cool, ain't it? It's a quiver with arrows, but made from a full raccoon. So that's kind of cool.
Awesome. Newendorf is like, I want one.
Pastor Newendorf there needs himself a coonskin cap.
I do. I've needed one since I was 4.
So marriage.
Now we got our full 10 minutes.
Marriage is what brings us together
today. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. So as we get started off, as we mentioned, we take the idea of marriage and we want to contrast it, right? So marriage, we'll say under the cross, which is going to be marriage according to Christianity, and then marriage under culture versus how we have bought in, especially in the Christian church, how we have bought into cultural assumptions and worldviews of marriage itself. Maybe we should start just real briefly on dating versus courting. Okay, what's the difference of that? That's something that I've talked to at least my kids about on dating versus courting. How do we unpack that? Have you guys had that? Well, I guess my kids are a little bit older than you guys' kids.
No, I've been talking to my oldest son about these sorts of things. And I also talked to my confirmation students about this as well, because I can't guarantee to have a captive audience again, though, by the time they're 18, they'll probably forget everything I said, because that's how this usually works, right?
All right. So what's the difference between the two? I mean, as far as dating and courting, just to help explain that.
Well, the way that you're setting it up, because you obviously are trying to say that there's a significant difference here, is that dating, the way that we do it in culture, is just you go around, have fun, sleep with whoever you want to sleep with, play house with whoever you want to play house with, have a few one-night stands. And then when you kind of get bored of the fast and loose lifestyle, then you find someone to settle down with after you've, had some experiences and, sown some wild oats.
Yeah. I find amazing, like I'll talk to people, it's like, man, they start dating a person, and I'll always go to this perspective, saying, man, just to think, in a little bit of time, you could be married to that person. And I get this like look of shock and horror from people. And I'm like, well, and I actually push back on this. I'm like, so you don't think this man is like husband material? Well, not really. And then I'm like, well, what are you doing? Right. Mm-hmm. What are you doing then? Or this gal, it's like, well, man, think about this. It might be your future wife and the future mother of your children. And it's like, I'm like, well, okay, well, if you don't see that person as a future spouse, what are you doing? What's
wasting time and having fun, bro?
Yeah.
I horrified my wife the other day on this topic. I was helping her fold some towels in the laundry room, and my son has been bugging me. He's old enough this year on his birthday, he can get his permit. Right. This is a big deal. And he's already saving for a pickup. And she's like, oh, I just can't believe how old he's getting. And I said, you realize that in like 3.5 years, he could meet his wife. She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I started going out with you when I was 17. And I thought she was going to have an existential crisis, not because it's bad to meet your wife at 17, but because she felt really old all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. I think probably, so I've just formulated my own preferred way to approach these things over the last 2 minutes, because I've been a little perplexed about it. And I imagine that, Matt, when you contrast dating with courting, you mean dating is for fun and courting is toward marriage or something along those lines. The thing is, dating as I encountered it in high school and college was a very emotionally fraught thing. So my society, even unbelieving, godless society, did not view dating as just sleeping around for fun. They viewed dating as many engagements and many marriages. So if you don't have to be dating someone to sleep with that person, but in that cultural view. But if you start dating someone, that means you're now boyfriend and girlfriend, and there's an exclusivity that is expected. And if someone who's a boyfriend or girlfriend dates someone else, that constitutes cheating. And it generally terminates then in an official breakup. So it's the commencement of an exclusive, close, loving relationship with the expectation that that relationship is going to dissolve in the near future. And you generally date a number of partners successively until maybe in your 20s or 30s you marry one of them. To my mind, that seems like an emotional minefield. You're setting yourself up for the sorts of feelings that one would experience in an unfaithful practice of marriage, where you have serial marriages. God did not
serial failing marriages.
Right. God did not design us for these kinds of relationships to end with breakups. We're not made for that.
This is great. Yeah.
So there are two ways that to my mind, that you could mitigate this. One is do something like Matt is suggesting, where there's no dating, it's only courtship. And courtship means it's all with marriage on the horizon as the goal. And generally, the way courting has been traditionally talked about, parents are deeply involved. So two sets of godly parents might say, we have a son, we have a daughter, let's get these two together. And then the parents kind of coach them through the process, and then maybe at the end of it, they get married.
I actually know that a case where that has happened.
Yeah.
And I am going to a wedding in the end of May for a young Lutheran lady and her fiance, that the parents basically set them up.
Yep. Now, I'd say that can work, and there are plenty of instances where it has worked. To my mind, it also involved similar risks to dating as I described it. What if you have two families, they set up this couple, they're under a courtship, and they have this understanding that this is going to culminate in marriage. And let's just say they don't hit it off for one reason or other. They don't have that spark. They don't want to get married. Or maybe one does and the other doesn't. Then you still have this idea where you've started this relationship toward marriage, but one party or other wants to back out, and then you have heartbreak and so on. Now, maybe that's unavoidable. Maybe that's just part of life. But dating as it was practiced in my parents' generation did not necessarily involve we become boyfriend and girlfriend, we're dating for a year and a half, and then one of us breaks up with the other. One of us dumps the other, and we have the heartbreak and so on. Dating meant who of the opposite sex do I enjoy spending time with? I'm going to a movie with this girl this week. I'm going ice skating with that girl this next week. And I'm going on outings with these different girls so that I can get a feel for them. Do we click? Do we enjoy talking with each other? Do I feel afterwards like, boy, I'd like to do something with her again? And there's less writing on it, so that it's more an opportunity to get to know what sorts of personalities click with me, what kinds of personalities do I just not get along with, and then through sort of a natural process, you find, I'm always seeing the same girl, and she's always interested in going out with me. And then it enters something more like what you might call a courtship phase, where the understanding is, we're thinking about getting married, but you don't have this formal spot where you say, we are now officially boyfriend and girlfriend. The only time anything is official is engagement.
That's what I was going to ask. Is boyfriend and girlfriend, is that language just kind of a replacement for engagement?
For our culture, I think yes, because there's such moral baggage that comes along with it. Oh, another thing that we got to throw in here. The way that dating has been approached for the last 30, 40 years, it's understood that sex is involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of this can be resolved if we take sex off the table. And if it's just everybody's understanding that sex is for once we're married, not engaged, married.
But don't you know that human beings are sexual creatures and can't help themselves, Neuendorf? Don't you know that it's impossible to leave your zipper up because you are just a weak-minded fool and a slave to your base passions? Don't you know that that's true?
I know no such thing.
That is one of the assumptions of like so much in modern society that drives me up a freaking wall. We talk about sexual orientation as a constituent part of our identity, even foundational part of our identity. We talk about, with the way we teach, sexual education is assuming that kids are totally able to be continent, right? To be chaste. And consequently, we set them up to run around and sleep with whoever. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Self-control is a thing, guys. That's all I'm throwing out there. It's a thing. You can actually keep your pants on.
Man, these great insights. Bo, any insights on this here?
Well, I'm just gonna be questioned. So, but isn't sex kind of an unavoidable thing if you're telling people they also shouldn't get married before 25 or 30?
Yeah. So permit me this makes me, I'll be honest, this makes me irate. We in the church, and I've called St. Paul's out on this. I've said this in previous churches. We tell individuals, we say, don't get married right now. It'll ruin your life. It's terrible. Don't have kids. Wait till at least you're 25, experience life. And then we say, oh, by the way, don't have sex, or at least don't tell us you're having sex. And that's how we handle it. I mean, no, really, we turn a blind eye as the church. We say, and I've heard this, and I've heard this from so many individuals, and it's usually typically the older people in the church that will cry out, you can't get married young. You have so much to live, so much to experience. But then you bring out this whole idea of burning with passion, and it's like, we don't, no.
But let's just break down the logic a little bit. Okay, so you have so much to live for. What do you have to live for?
Right.
Like, okay, when I'm on my deathbed, at 80 years old or whatever, am I going to sit there and be like, oh man, I totally wish I would have spent more time in my 20s sleeping around and getting blackout drunk with the boys? No. What are you going to talk about on your deathbed? You're going to talk about your children and your grandchildren. You're going to talk about your life in Christ. That's the stuff that you talk about on your deathbed. And I don't know about you, Bo, but at least us pastors, you're in the ministry long enough. You're sitting by people's deathbeds. That is the stuff that comes up all the time. That is what matters to people in their last moments. Their family, their faith. They don't talk about sleeping around. They don't talk about partying. They don't talk about the series of relationships that they had. They don't talk about that stuff because it's just completely irrelevant at that time. So and I guess, when I die, I want to have, I got some advice once, right? When you have somewhere you want to be, reverse engineer from that point how to get there. When I die, that's what I want to be on my mind when I die is my children and my grandchildren, my life in Christ. So how do I reverse engineer that? Well, I go to church and I get married and I have kids with my wife and I stay faithful to her. Done.
Boom.
So we actually, as a culture then, and we can get into how culture defines marriage, but we actually, as a culture, read Romans 1, we take what's evil and call it good and call it evil. So we encourage people that they need to run around, and we've flipped it to make children and marriage burdens as opposed to blessings and gifts. And we say that, and we flip it and make drinking and partying and promiscuity
perpetual adolescence.
Perpetual adolescence, and we hold that up as good.
When I was at the dating age, it was viewed as grossly irresponsible to get married in your late teens, early 20s. And then once you get married, it was considered grossly irresponsible to have kids within like the first 10 years of your marriage. You got to wait until the house is all set to go. You both have your careers totally underway. You've saved up a bunch of money, have your retirement all set up, and then you can start thinking about getting a dog. And then once you have a dog and a cat and you know how to take care of pets, then you can start thinking about having kids. I've been digitizing for years because it's slow going. I've been digitizing our church book here at Our Saviors, and when I get to marriages, from like the 1940s to the 1970s, they'll list the ages of the couples. And the typical ages for those decades are like 17 bride, 18 groom. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Like a year later, we're baptizing their babies. And 60 years later, we're doing a funeral for the widow of, this person that was married at 17, 18. They stuck it together.
Okay.
They had kids.
But is
they
that
had to be for life for themselves.
we can't just we could there's a couple ways to look at. Could we just look back at that and say, oh, that's how they did it, so that's what is good? Meaning, we can't just look back at the past and just say default that was good because that's what we did in the past. So my
It
question
could be
is,
good, it could not be, but they did it and it worked.
so they did it and it worked, okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's so. Back up a little bit here then. What is marriage? Let's define marriage. So we've kind of gone the dating route, and now we've said what maybe a possible ideal might look like. Now back up and say, okay, what is marriage? Is it two people being happy together, so they decide to be married or get married, or what? How do we define marriage even? How does God define it?
I'm not the definition guy, but I'll take a crack at it. Neuendorf can fix me.
Okay.
Marriage is the publicly accountable union of one man to one woman, meant to be lifelong, where children are raised and they become one flesh and they are identified as a single familial unit under the headship of the father and husband of that household. I think
That's
I
quite
left
an
something
expansive
out.
definition.
Yeah. Well, I'd even add to it. This is Norman Nagel used to say this, that a man and wife do not create a marriage. They step into the estate. They take their places. And so
that's the part I wanted to throw in. Yeah, they enter into the institute.
And I love
estate.
And I love,
there we go.
Yeah,
that's the word.
I love pushing back on young couples, and it's actually breathes a sigh of relief to them that the big marriage day, you are not creating a marriage. It doesn't like poof, it exists. You're taking your place. Today you take your place as a husband. Today you take your place as a wife.
Have you run into problems with planning weddings with couples where they just like really have a hard time with the idea that their relationship's not this super unique and special thing, that they're actually just doing what humans have done since the beginning in the Garden of Eden and entering into the state of holy matrimony that God designed?
Yeah, and that's a cultural push. I mean, and as far as with, we call it when Serenity was a photographer, we called it bridezillas, and the bride emotionally makes the whole day just about her, and it's a very pagan way of looking at it versus the day being about the gift of marriage given to a couple, and so it's a gift given that you step into. It's a new vocational role that's actually created for you. As you do the vows.
So in our American context, how do we define marriage today? Who's it between and what's it for?
Any two people that have a romantic interest in each other and are willing to, by force of their wills, be united together.
But okay, marriage for a culture too. Yes, marriage for a culture. I would say that the difference for marriage and a culture would be kind of like what Neuendorf was describing with dating. You have a relationship between, let's just say, a man and a woman. It's a friendship. But a marriage is an emotional intensity that if you have, let's just say, between a man and a woman, you have on a scale from 1 to 10, maybe a friendship relationship at a 2. Well, then to make it a marriage, you have to jump it up to level 10 and add sex. So it's an emotionally intense relationship of happiness for sexual gratification and also with doing life together with that person. So it's an emotional intensity greater than other relationships that are out there.
So by that definition, two people of the same sex can be married.
Correct. 100%. Yeah.
Neuendorf. Three or more people.
Yeah, more than 2 people.
Sorry, Neuendorf, I didn't hear you making a point there.
For what it's worth.
But that's the point with the redefinition of marriage, is that when you say that marriage is a man and a woman stepping into the estate of marriage for their mutual joy of each other to create a family and the procreation of children, then if you have that whole procreation of children aspect, then it would limit marriage to a man and a woman. So therefore, in order to have marriage with two dudes or two women, you have to remove that procreation of marriage out of that and redefine marriage. And so the whole thing with same-sex marriage, it is actually literally a redefinition of marriage in the United States. So we have 2 cultural definitions of marriage. I said this in a sermon the other day that same-sex marriages are a myth. They're not real. They're fake.
You say same-sex marriage is a redefinition of marriage. I think marriage was redefined in the decades leading up to it, so that the space was left for same-sex marriage to be plugged in, because procreation was removed from marriage decades ago.
Well, that's my question. So, I mean, procreation is, and obviously we want to be sensitive to people who have a hard time with this, but that's the exception proves the rule. Marriage is for procreation.
Yep.
I mean, marriage is to fulfill the first command that God gave to man, basically.
The Christian church has acknowledged 3 chief purposes of marriage, one being procreation. So Genesis 1, God made the male and female and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Boom, procreation. That's why he instituted marriage. And I mean, when you look at the design biologically of men and women, I mean, if you think about it with like a detached observer perspective, it is weird. We are bizarrely made. Why did God make us with this weird plumbing, so to speak? Well, so that when you get these two together, you can have children. So, I mean, the whole thing is oriented from the beginning, from creation toward childbearing, toward procreation. But then is something funny to you, Brademeyer?
Oh, you're just such a bigot, you know.
That's what everybody says to me all the time. So the second listed purpose of marriage is Genesis 2. It is not good that the man should be alone. I'll make a helper fit for him. Companionship. So those are the 2 purposes of marriage for which it was actually created and instituted by God. To have each other's backs, to comfort each other, nurture each other, and for the procreation of children. And you can't legitimately enter a marriage without the intention of those things being a part of it. Now, of course, if there are factors that make procreation impossible, such as old age, then that doesn't remove the legitimacy of the marriage. You're still entering into this institution. But if you are capable of procreating and you enter the marriage saying we're going to be dinks, that is dual income, no kids, that's not why God instituted marriage. So procreation and companionship. But then, of course, we have the fall into sin. And with the fall into sin, you have the advent of fornication, the sexual impulse outside the bonds of marriage, which is sinful. So then marriage serves the third purpose of an aid against fornication, an aid against temptation. So does the world acknowledge any of those as the purpose of marriage? Well, to an extent, maybe companionship. Certainly not the third one. They don't care about fornication. And as I said, decades ago, we removed procreation from the scene. But you could say the world acknowledges a place for companionship. But even that takes a second seat or back seat to self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
My marriage is about discovering who I am. And if my personal identity is now threatened by the marriage, my identity trumps the marriage. So I leave the marriage and try to find myself somewhere else.
In fact, I would say the secular view of marriage is actually an inversion of what we're taught in Ephesians chapter 5, where the husband is to serve his wife and the wife is to submit to and respect her husband, right? Instead of that sort of thinking, what we get is, well, my spouse, my wife is there to, make me have a better life. It's all about me, guys. It's what I want. It's what I get out of it.
Say, another thing about the companionship is God could have made a brother for Adam. But instead, God made for Adam a companion who corresponded to him. And this is something that I enjoy pointing out. The Hebrew is konegdo, a helper corresponding to him. And it's just a freak of etymology, a linguistic coincidence that konegdo sounds kind of like the English word connect. They fit together. They go together. They're like puzzle pieces. They're like Lego pieces.
You're such a bigot.
and their fitting together operates in such a way, not only that they are capable of procreating children, but that each has a unique role to play in the raising and nurture of children. A child needs a mom and a dad. Now, of course, as we always have to qualify, okay, if you end up as a single mom, that doesn't mean that you're not doing your best and we aren't backing you up. But or if the mother dies and the dad is stuck raising the kids on his own, you do your best. But
well, we're back to the exception proves the rule here.
Yeah.
So.
The rule is a child needs a mother and a father. And if you look back on your childhood, your mother filled a role that your father is incapable of filling. And your father filled a role that your mother is incapable of filling. So within a marriage, both in the raising of children and in the way that we provide companionship for one another, men and women are not interchangeable. They serve unique roles ordained by God. And those roles are also arranged in a hierarchy. Sorry. The husband is the head and the wife is the body. The wife
Long live the patriarchy, gentlemen.
Amen.
Well, it's interesting. So Serenity did photography for about 10 years. And so we would shoot weddings together. And so I would be the second shooter. And what we found is we went to a lot of weddings, like at resorts or at, different venues, not churches. And what we found very, very consistent was two things. It was very, very fascinating. Two things. With the weddings that were not done, well, let's just say they're pagan weddings. We'll just call them pagan weddings. Two things happened. When they came to the vows, when they write their own vows, all the stuff about suffering and being with her until death, the richer for poor, the poor was left out. Good times and bad times, the bad times were left out. All that kind of language of suffering was typically left out. Very, very common. The second thing was the majority of them, the bride gave the vows first. Now, why is that such a point? In our wedding ritual liturgy that we have here in our churches, we have the man go first. And what does the man do? And I'm very, very clear with premarital counseling that the man goes first and he promises to what? Love his wife as Christ loved the church. And how did Christ love the church? He bled and died. And so the vow of the man starts and the man says, I will sacrifice for you, dear bride. I will shed my blood for you, dear bride. I will give everything for you. And the wife says, thank you. I will submit and respect to a man who what? Bleeds and dies. But we look at this idea of the pagan wedding, you'd have what? The vows that were flipped around and nothing about suffering and dying both ways.
Okay. I got to step in and provide a caution here about conditioning the vows.
Yeah. I said that and I realized that I was saying that at the same time.
So the husband does not promise to love his wife as Christ loves the church as long as she's submitting to him. And the wife does not promise to submit to her husband as long as he's providing the right kind of leadership. She's going to submit even if he's a jerk.
Which is what Paul says and actually, thank you for clarifying that, because I was saying that, I'm like, yep, I've got to clarify that. So Paul says, out of reverence for Christ. It's kind of that heading, out of reverence for Christ, and then that flows from there.
Well, when he says out of reverence for Christ, that's submitting to one another. That's all Christians laying down our preferences, saying, I'm not going to insist on my own way. I'll submit to my brother and sister Christians. But in marriage, it's not mutual submission. In marriage, the husband leads, the wife submits to the husband. And you're not determining, is my spouse worthy of my providing this element that I promised to provide in the marriage? The husband's going to love his wife even if she is a nag and a shrew and so on. And the wife is going to submit to her husband even if he's a jerk and a blowhard and whatnot. So, in fact, a wife submitting to her husband the way the scriptures describe could be transformative for that husband. Do you know what it does to a man when a woman who he loves says, yes, sir? It's transformative. It makes you want to be the best possible version of yourself.
There's a difference between a nagging wife coming home to a nagging wife. There's a difference in me. I shouldn't say that. It never happened to me. Where
your wife never
nagging wife. No, but I could imagine a scenario where someone came home to a nagging wife versus someone who came home to a peaceful wife. I assume there's such a case out there in which that changes a guy's day. That changes who he is to her.
Okay, real quick.
And then the other thing I want to make the point here. And I think it's feminism and Marxism that conflates and says that all submission is oppression.
Yeah.
Submission isn't oppression. The church is not oppressed by Christ. The church receives from Christ. And in our culture, we conflate the two and say that those two are one, that anytime you're under someone else, that it's automatically a form of oppression.
Okay, did you call the guy a shrew there? I was like shrew. I'm like,
no,
so no, you said the word shrew, right? I'm like,
yeah,
that's fantastic.
referring to the guy is going to love his wife, whether she is a nag or a shrew or anything else.
True.
It's very
Shrew, right?
Shakespearean.
Is that the small mole? You mean like the little tiny?
Are you not familiar with this, Richard?
No, help me.
You never heard of
goodness.
the Taming of the Shrew?
No, I
Oh
explain
my
to me.
gosh.
A shrew is a recalcitrant wife, one who wears the pants and is always cutting her husband down.
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry, I'm not
refuses
familiar
to-
with that word. Yeah,
is
something
always
shrew. I'm
grumbling
thinking
in
like the little tiny mouse thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
yeah. That's
The
a
Reverend
very
Dr.
long-
Author Blogger doesn't read Shakespeare. All right.
no, I don't read Shakespeare. I
It's
should.
watch the musical "Kiss Me, Kate."
Okay.
A beautiful retelling of the Taming of the Shrew.
Okay. All right. Sorry, guys.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the shrew
is
is
the
the
quality
typical
content.
21st century wife.
This is the quality content that people stick around for right here, guys.
Yeah. So, I think it's worth pointing out how the Christian Church has historically viewed the definition of marriage and the nature of what's happening when a couple makes their vows to one another. And first of all, it's also worth pointing out marriage is not unique to the Christian Church. So we don't view marriage as a sacrament that has to be performed by an ordained minister in order to be valid or legitimate. You can have a legitimate marriage entered into by two pagans with no pastor involved. The reason we get married by pastors in churches is because we want to do it publicly and imploring the blessing of God. And I say we want to do it publicly. Publicly is part of the nature of marriage. So you can't have a secret marriage, even if you're pagans. So what is marriage? Marriage is the lifelong. So as long as we both shall live, marriage is dissolved by death. All cultures except Mormons have always recognized that marriage is dissolved by death. It's the lifelong union of one man and one woman unto one flesh. So it's a sexual union for the procreation of children and companionship and as an aid against fornication. And it's entered into by the mutual consent of the man and his wife. However, that doesn't mean that the marriage is determined thereafter by the mutual consent. They're entering by consent into this union that is now binding on them for as long as they both shall live. And what makes them married in a church service is not the pastor saying, "I now pronounce you man and wife." The pronouncement of the pastor is a public recognition of the marriage that has now been constituted by the public vows of the man and his wife, saying, we are in the full knowledge of what we're doing, entering into this institution that God has established. Now, parents can encourage children toward a particular marriage. Arranged marriages can be a beautiful thing and bring a lot of blessing. They can also bring a lot of heartache and sorrow if the parents aren't operating with their kids' best interests in mind. But what it finally comes down to is, are they entering into this willingly and publicly? You can't force a marriage.
Well, I mean, you can. It just doesn't work out very good.
Yeah.
So a couple of people out in culture, a couple of pagans, so to speak, if they get married, they're in a marriage. That's
right. Yes.
that, and we wouldn't expect them to get married in a church if they're not church people. I mean,
and they become my members. I'm not going to remarry them.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm. But for us Christians, we get married and we step into the estate in the church. So then,
Hey, so let me ask you guys sorry, on that tack though of remarrying people. I do kick around the idea of, if I have converts come to the church who are not Christian, who aren't married in a Christian church, I have not had this happen yet. But I have kicked around the idea of doing like a renewal of vows for them to make sure they make good promises to each other instead of whatever,
Yeah, and that's actually in our agenda. There's a blessing of marriage where you can do in those cases, right? We've had.
They're not remarried at that point.
No,
they already were married, but they're renewal vows.
I've had, like, for example, I mean, it's just one example among many. I had a couple once upon a time. They were living together, and I just said, we got to fix this. I can move you out tonight. I'll help you move out tonight, and we fix this. And I said, well, just think about, we'll talk about this later this week. Well, then they came in. They said, guess what? We got married by the justice of the peace. Okay, God be praised. They did that. But then, okay, what do we do with that? They said, can we do a blessing here at the church? Absolutely, we can do a blessing of that in the church at a future point. So that was used for that case. Or, for example, like there's a situation where the marriage bond is maybe devastated by the effects of adultery or so forth, to do that right, to restate those vows again as a blessing per se. Thoughts on that?
So if you become one flesh with someone if you sleep with them, meaning if you're in a dating, cohabitating relationship, you are sleeping with that person. By definition, you're marrying that person and divorcing that person when you break up. It's not public. I'm trying to just sort that out, because there's threats attached to the sleeping with and becoming one flesh with someone like that.
The one flesh union is the intention of marriage, but it's not what constitutes marriage. So you're united in marriage unto one flesh, so for the purpose of having a sexual relationship for the procreation of children.
Mm-hmm.
But when St. Paul says that you become one flesh with a prostitute when you sleep with her, that doesn't mean you're marrying her. It remains fornication. It's a sin because you're entering into this one flesh union outside a marriage that God ordained.
Okay.
But I mean, the point is well taken that it's a momentous act, and it's extremely traumatic, damaging to both parties. And the way men and women are built, I mean, the fact is it's more traumatic for the women when all this is said and done. Yeah, we got to take that way more seriously as a culture than we do. Now,
that's what I was going to say when you brought up arranged marriages. I mean, that's routinely mocked in our culture. Yeah. The idea that anyone would ever do that. And again, it's got some serious downsides to it. But frankly,
that's back to my point that all submission is oppression.
But do you think the way we're doing it is better? No. I mean, just objectively, when you look at all of the data on well-being, on children, what we're like pushing or almost at 50%, or no, we're above 50%, aren't we? Nationally, of children are born out of wedlock these days.
Oh man,
I mean, I can't remember what the number is, but it was really, really high. And that's not good for kids.
Yeah,
it's not good for anybody. And then, like you were saying, every time you get a girlfriend or your boyfriend and you live with each other and you shack up and you play house, and you're having sex, and then you stop one day, it's like getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
You're tearing apart something that started it's growing together, and then you rip it apart, and it hurts. And there's a reason that it hurts. Mm-hmm. And then we just keep doing this because we think it's going to work out this time. I mean, you look at the data on cohabitation before marriage, and it's not great. People who don't live with each other until they're married are more likely not to get divorced than people who live together before they're married.
It's interesting, just looking up that stat. In Northern Europe, it's 50 to 70%, depending on children born out of wedlock, 50 to 70%, depending on which stat. United States, it's about 40%. Get this, Asia and the Middle East, it's under 10%.
Yeah, we used to have numbers like that not that many years ago in this country.
Yeah. Southern and Eastern Europe is 20 to 40. It's much lower, Southern to Eastern Europe. Fascinating.
I'm going to ask if you can indulge me in making just one more point to extend this idea of consent in marriage. And I'll start by saying that I got to see my mom, my family last month, I flew out to Indiana, had a wonderful trip out there with my daughter Lydia, and I got to officiate my cousin's wedding, and it was wonderful and beautiful. But my mom does watch this podcast. I don't know quite how it came under her radar because I'm not active enough in
Hi,
saying
Christopher's
anything.
mom.
Her name is Patricia. And she's a wonderful mother and a wonderful person.
We could have a mom support group, get all of our moms together.
Now we have two moms to watch. We have two viewers.
That's right. So my mom isn't always pleased with everything I say on this podcast. So I'm gonna try and redeem myself a little bit and bring up the fact that my parents were married in the Greek Orthodox Church, and my dad, I understand, has kind of wondered, where were the vows? Am I really married if I never made vows? Because vows are not part of the Orthodox marriage service. And my answer to that is, because my dad knew what he was doing by standing up at that service, his submission to the liturgy in the marriage rite constituted his consent to the marriage. So my parents are married, whether vows were taken or not. And he consented to a relationship that he knew involved a lifelong union to this woman unto one flesh for the procreation of children and their mutual companionship. And then the other thing I want to say about my parents is that when they were engaged, I think it was when they were engaged, they were made fun of by friends because of the nature of their relationship, that my father was obviously a man and kind of wore the pants, you might say. And my dad would open doors for my mom, and she treated him like he had some kind of natural headship or authority as a man. And they thought that, this isn't very feminist. So what my parents told me when I was little was that they went on a drive with these friends, and my dad leaned back driving the car while my mom fed him grapes. And I love that. I love that image. And I think probably every married couple should go out there and the husband should recline and the wife feed him grapes, just to tell the world, we recognize who wears the pants and is fed grapes in this household.
Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes here left here. Yeah, we love Noondorf's mom here. That's awesome. And we'll say hi to Carol, and Bo's mom watches this too, doesn't she?
I think she watches it.
Oh my gosh, 3 moms! I know my mom doesn't. So
she doesn't. Okay. All right.
Well, how do men and women, once in the state of marriage, how do men and women screw it up? What are the expectations and
Sin.
What are the actions? Okay.
What false expectations of society?
Yep. Do women sin in marriage, or just men, or do both parties sin?
Everybody sins.
Okay. So is that from? I mean, obviously we sin because we're sinners, but then what are the expectations that set us up to fail at marriage? What are the cultural expectations that the church has?
Oh man, there's a list. There's this whole much, like, it's always going to be fun. It's always going to be good. It's just going to be, pleasing to my emotions, right? The sex life is always going to be wonderful and amazing and passionate and novel and whatever else, right? That it's never going to be a burden, that I'm never going to have to give of anything or sacrifice to make this thing work. I'm never going to have to struggle with temptation or desire to step out on my marriage. There's going to be no bad. It's just all positives, right? And I'm just going to be self-actualizing all over the place and be amazing, and everything's going to work out great, and I'm going to be a better me. It's going to be awesome.
What should women expect from men in marriage? What should they expect from their husbands?
Leadership, stability, strength, steadiness,
provision,
reliability.
And so I'm going to go both ways. So what should women expect? And then how do men fail that we see? And they fail maybe even a way that they think is acceptable in culture or good or something that culture says this is fine to be this type of man in marriage. And that's honestly, by not leading.
Yeah, that's the big one. I was going to say the big one is when men just back off and don't head their households and they let the wife take over,
So they're sinning against their wife by not being the head over her.
Yes.
One of the things with all the divorces I've seen over the last 20 plus years, there's a common characteristic. The guy runs to the garage or he runs with the bros and he's not present. is not willing. He vacates the position.
There's another one. This one's more of a minority failure, but it's the kind of guy that beats the crap out of his wife, because he can't lead by just bringing his life along with him by explaining what he's doing or whatever. Like, he doesn't have the ability to do that, so he resorts to just straight violence to get his will accomplished in the house, and that's not good either.
Brute force is to be directed outside the household. It threats outside the household, and that brings comfort and assurance to the wife and the kids. But if he takes that brute force and directs it within the household, that's a deep perversion of God's design for marriage. And now the wife knows, this is not a man I can rely on. This is not someone I can count on and run to for comfort and protection. This is a threat in my own household. And that ruins things real quick.
So my question then is, why do these men slink to their garage or slink to their friends or avoid their wives? Do women have expectations of women have expectations of their husband? How do women sin? Do they sin? I'll
tell you one of the reasons. Some guys are just lazy. Okay. So
fair enough.
Let's take those guys off the table.
Yep.
But one of the things that wives do, and I don't even think a lot of them realize they're doing this, is they set their husbands up for failure. Because you walk into the house and it's, you don't clean the dishes right, you didn't take the garbage out, you don't know how to change a diaper, you did this wrong, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and everything, even if they're not nagging about it, but just the idea that there's nothing you can do that's right here, because she has to correct him and instruct him, and she heads over him. No man wants to do that, so he's just going to check out and go out to the garage.
Is interesting.
Checking out doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Not usually. Sometimes it does. Because there are guys. There are guys who are basement trolls and they lose their life in a video game or something like that. That may have nothing to do with the wife. But there are also situations where the guy walks in, and again, the wife's just doing what she was taught to do by our feminist culture, right? And she doesn't realize what she's doing is crushing her husband and disrespecting him. And no man will put up with that kind of disrespect. That's why
it was interesting that Anya and I was going to a conference this weekend in South Dakota, and we went to an Applebee's. This would have been just, I don't know if it was in Bismarck or if it was actually in South Dakota. Regardless, we're sitting there, and Anya was probably about 9 or 10, and it was a group of women next to the next table there, and they were very, very loud. And we just sat there, and she just kept on looking at me. Literally for the full 45 minutes we were there eating, we heard them berate and destroy their husbands in a circle. And we left, and she said, "Daddy, what's wrong with those girls? Why do they hate their husbands so much?" And I said, "Sweetie, I don't know." I said, "What we heard there, why are they still married? I mean, if what they described in their husband is actually true, they were married to monsters. So what led them to marry those kind of monsters?" And it's just like, man, oh my goodness, it was a Lord have mercy moment. And that was the whole point with Anya. This is, you don't speak about your husband this way. You don't speak to your husband that way, and you do not speak to other women about your husband that way.
It's a betrayal of the most fundamental sort.
It is absolutely degrading, and it destroys the idea of the man. And I've always told my girls that when you have your husband, you don't knock him down, you build him up. In other words, he is that prince, right, who is climbing to the top to fight the dragon, and you get underneath his shoulder and you build him up. It's kind of like that line from Spider-Man where she says to him, "Go get him, tiger," right? Love that line. It's to build him up,
and your
right?
Movie references.
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Yeah. But yeah, again, it's and so I think on the one hand, what we did say is there are guys who will run to the video games, they'll run to the shop and so forth. They're just flat out lazy, right?
Or they don't have an idea what it is to be a man because they just have never been taught.
Yeah, maybe
right?
They don't have a father figure.
That's part of it too. They don't have a father figure. Right. They learned, but then you do have the wife problem there.
But on the other side too, the way that some women will treat their man, it's like, man, I don't blame the guy. You come in the house, you walk in, and you get shredded, and basically the woman then functions like a mom. And then you have so the man then is feeling like he's 8 years old. He comes back from playing with the boys or doing whatever he does, and he gets nagged on by his mother, who's actually his wife. And then what ends up happening?
So I asked the question, and Nuendorf answered, "What should a woman expect from her husband? What should a husband expect from his wife then?"
Respect.
Submission.
What
so the
forms
primary.
what forms do those take in or what form does submission actually take? What does that mean?
It means that she's not trying to usurp his authority and headship. She's not trying to dominate or run over him, or she doesn't nag him and disrespect him. She's not backbiting him and talking negatively about him, that sort of thing.
One way I've seen it expressed is a wife who doesn't respect her husband will give him specific instructions and watch him fail because it doesn't do it just the way she wants him to do it or something like that. But a woman can learn to respect her husband by simply making her needs known to the husband and then giving him space to do what he needs to do to make it happen. The primary thing that a man is looking for in his marriage is respect from his wife. The primary thing that a woman is looking for in a marriage is love from her husband. And of course, women want respect too, men want love too, but that's the primary thing we're looking for. And if you're constantly micromanaging your husband, constantly expressing that what he's doing isn't good enough, if you're setting him up to fail, then lo and behold, he's going to fail. But if you rely on your husband and let him know what you need this task done, or you need this thing in your car to be better, or you need this thing to change with kids' behavior, and then let him take the lead, take the bull by the horns and get it done, and support him and express your how impressed you are with him. And my goodness, a husband who is told by his wife that he is impressive, man, that's a force to be reckoned with.
So is sex conditional on him meeting all those needs perfectly, the way she expects?
Well, that's a funny thing. Because on the one hand, no. On the one hand, sex is a due that a wife owes her husband and a husband owes her wife. And if you doubt that, read 1 Corinthians 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God tells you your body's not your own. You owe sex to your spouse. Now, how many husbands have to be told by their wives, you owe me sex? But how many wives need to be told by their husbands, you owe me sex? Well, the thing is, how many wives, if they are told by their husbands, you owe me sex, are inclined to respond?
Yeah, it's not very attractive.
No, it's not. So the husband ought not to approach it from a sense of desperation and neediness.
Mm-hmm.
If the husband orders his marriage in such a way that he has the respect of his wife, then sex can come more naturally. However, something we need to be aware of is the phenomenon of responsive desire. And what do we mean by that? In the early days of a flourishing marriage, the wife can't get enough of her husband. And all right, sex comes really naturally. But as things become more routine, the wife will not experience so much of what you'd call spontaneous desire. The husband, the classic illustration is like a light switch. Of course, anytime, anywhere, yeah, he's good to go. But do we need to censor some of this? but the wife,
maybe the light switch thing will censor
the wife, typically the conventional image is she's like an oven, a conventional oven that needs to be preheated. So sorry. So that
you're not wrong though. You're not wrong.
That means the problem we run into is the wife doesn't experience this intense need for her husband right here, right now, and therefore she concludes, I don't really want sex. And then the husband concludes, boy, my wife must not really be into me because she doesn't have the same kind of desire for me that I have for her. And then that causes, well, eventually dead bedrooms where you're not engaging in the one flesh union, which is a bad thing. It's a problem for a marriage. And it's way too frequent, way too prevalent in our society now.
And I just saw a statistic about that recently about the number of couples, which they're broad in the data, but that are sexless. It's actually a pretty high number, if I remember right. Like even young couples, like in their 20s, there's like a significant minority, and when I say significant, I mean like 10% or something, that don't have sex even once a month.
Yeah,
which
so
is crazy.
That's the technical definition of a sexless marriage.
20,
less than once a
20%.
month.
Are you in a sexless
marriage? Are you in a sexless marriage? How often do you have sex? Is it once a month or less? You're probably in a sexless marriage. The typical volume is about twice a week average. And sometimes it's good just for people to be aware of that. Twice a week average. If that seems like astronomically high to you, there might be problems that we need to work out in the marriage. Twice a week average is pretty typical.
I know we're over time here, but since we're on this, what advice would you guys give to a husband who's in a sexless marriage?
Don't beg your wife for sex. Don't sulk and pout when she turns you down. And try to be the kind of man day to day in your marriage that your wife will be drawn to. So provide leadership, and don't let her bait you into infantile behavior. And
I would also add, and bear your cross. This is what you signed up for.
Yep. So
she's not doing her end of things, but you need to still do your end of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't comfort yourself by saying, "Well, she's not giving it to me, so I'll find other ways." No, there are no other ways. Sorry. And by restricting yourself to your wife, to your married relationship for the fulfilling of those very real desires, that is a powerful motivator on working on it, making sure that it's healthy. If you have an out, then the marriage can go rot and you won't care. So,
what about the woman who's in the sexless marriage then?
A lot of the same advice, right?
Get your husband tested for testosterone levels. If a woman's in a sexless marriage, it's generally a health problem for the man.
Mm-hmm.
If a man's in a sexless marriage, it's kind of a typical 21st century marriage based on feminism. And
it's either a health problem. It's either a health problem or just a porn addiction.
Oh, yep.
So, but that's not necessarily. What about the woman who is using sex as leverage, so to speak? I don't know if that's
that's not good.
That's as sin, or that's as wrong as a man being mean or using his strength over his woman, not being loving. It's sin.
I think if a man finds himself in a sexless marriage, there are all kinds of things he can do on his end to try to help the situation. But at some point, his wife may need to be reminded, you do owe this to your husband. And I mean, you do love him, right? And one way that spontaneous desire works is the wife can recognize, I don't feel like it right now. And if I keep waiting until I feel like it, we're going to be in a dead bedroom for the duration. But if I can remember, when we have done this, I really enjoy it. It makes me feel good about myself, about my husband. And it's I have good memories of these things. I may not feel like it right now, but if I kind of get the ball rolling, then eventually, not too long from now, I will feel like it, and then it'll be wonderful.
So it takes both parties. It takes effort. Marriage takes trying.
And how much can the man do to help his wife recognize what she ought to be contributing to the sexual side of the marriage? That's really tough and really tricky. But one thing you might do is arrange to talk with your pastor about it. And hopefully your pastor will have some basic knowledge about dead bedrooms, the sexual dynamic in marriage, and so on, and be able to not tell the wife, you owe your husband sex this many times a week and you better do it or else. But help both parties to understand this is part of God's design for marriage. If it's not happening, something's wrong. And here are some tools that you can use to help make it more a regular part of your life together.
Yeah, and seeing it like what Bo said there, seeing it as a gift rather than a tool to be used.
Yeah, that's the thing is like
it's a gift.
Sex is a gift. Children are a gift. Marriage is a gift. It's all good. And all this sin is and all the cultural things are corrupting it. And headship is a gift. And submission is a gift. All these things are good. And
And here I thought Neuendorf was bigoted. Look at you go.
Yeah.
But again, that's the point, though. What does sin do? Sin comes in and it wrecks things. It perverts it. It just twists it. I mean, sin
it.
Yeah, sin takes that which is good and healthy and true, and it twists it and it flips it upside down, and that's what we're talking about. I mean, there's a natural and unfortunately that's what the problem is when we talk about the subject of sex and marriage and all these kind of things. I think frankly the American church in a lot of ways, even having this conversation, we hear it through a cultural lens. We hear it through the brokenness of sin rather than for what it actually is, biblically speaking. So even just like, for instance, the headship, you say that, and there's a knee-jerk reaction to that. Why? We're not seeing it as a gift. We're seeing it as oppressive. Why? Because we have this downloaded cultural assumption, whether it's Marxist ideology or feminism or whatever it is, that gives us this tainted lens that we cannot see it for what it is as a gift.
Well, we always have to qualify it. Every time we say the word headship or submission, we have to qualify it and explain ourselves when God says it's good. It's the right thing. It's the right way. And this culture has infiltrated the church to the point where we can't even just speak plainly.
Or even
defining every term.
And even back to the very beginning of our conversation, a young couple comes and I just think my wife and I, she was 18, I was 19. I proposed to her. And instead of saying, God be praised, that's wonderful, I would say over 60 to 70% of the church was like, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure? It was questioning in it. Mm-hmm. And Serenity and I, we have said this with our own kids. My son, he's going to be 19 here, and his girlfriend, they've been dating for 2 years. They've started talking about marriage, and we said, we're not going to make that same mistake. We're going to be in their corner. We're going to be behind them. We're going to be cheering them on as the biggest cheerleaders in their life with marriage, because marriage is what? It's not a curse, it's a gift. It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had the opposite problem. I met my wife at 17. She asked me to go with her to her senior prom. And I was a junior, she was a senior, so I was 17 years old. We started going out. I didn't get married till I was 24.
Man, what were you waiting for?
To be old enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it is one of my more significant regrets in life that I waited that long.
Why? Yeah. Why did you though? I mean, why did you?
That's just how old you were when you got married,
That's what. So, but it was the church didn't. The church was neutral on it, or they discouraged
Nobody ever told me to do it. It didn't even occur to me.
The cultural expectation.
Nobody encouraged you.
No. Mm-hmm. Didn't even cross my mind that this was a thing to do till I was graduated and out of college.
We could do a whole hour on the practical side of making early marriages work, because there are a lot of challenges set up by the way we order our society now to early marriage and early childbirth. Mm-hmm. But you can make it work, and there's great blessing in it. I know we're over time, but I think something that's really important to assert here.
You can just go, Pastor Matt.
We'll just leave. Neuendorf will sit here and talk.
I texted him. I said, I'm going to be late. So.
Okay. Genesis 3, fall into sin, curse on the snake, curse on the devil, and then the curse on the woman. A part of the curse on the woman is, your desire shall be for your husband, but he shall rule over you. Next chapter 4, Cain is contemplating murdering Abel. God says, sin's desire is for you, but you must master it. Same idiom, same expression. With sin, the idea is sin wants to wear the pants in the relationship. Sin wants to control you, but you have to keep it under control. In a marriage post-fall, the wife is going to want to wear the pants. She's going to want to dominate her husband. She's going to want to be domineering and nagging and wear the pants in the marriage. But he's going to rule over her if the marriage is functioning the way God instituted it. So I think that's the primary sin that we see developing in 21st century relationships, is the woman wanting to dominate her man. But if it's going to be healthy, the man has to rule his wife. And
so in 21st century here, that the men actually have perpetuated to that and say, yes, that is, I mean, they've become more docile at that point and don't actually take that lead like you're saying. And women are finding out that these aren't the men they thought they were going to be once they get a chance to rule over them.
It doesn't end up working for either party. The woman thinks she'll be happy if she's in charge, but then when she gains power, she finds, oh, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. I don't have a husband I can respect, I can look up to. And then
the man thinks, hey, if I lose my responsibility, I can just sit on my duff and drink beer and play video games or whatever. It's great. And then he ends up hating himself.
Woman finds this make-believe man that will make her happy somewhere else.
And then in Ephesians, wives, submit to your husbands as the church submits to Christ. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church. We define down that submission to death until it's almost meaningless. But, Peter tells us what this submission means. It means obedience. Because Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. My goodness, you want to get a husband you can respect? Address your husband as Lord, or maybe his modern equivalent, sir. Try obeying your husband and see where your marriage goes from there. Try respecting the man that God has placed over you.
Feed him grapes.
Yeah, feed him grapes.
Or Dairy Queen, right? Dairy Queen.
I don't think taking that soft serve works as good though.
Yeah, Dairy Queen. All right. So, anything else to add on this?
We didn't talk about half of your subjects. We never got to divorce, but it's good. It's good when marriage doesn't get to divorce. So
yeah, we should do a whole episode on divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, funny story to drop as we finish out here. Just real quick here. When Serenity and I were engaged, and we're talking to our pastor and talking about the struggle with burning for passion. And our pastor said to us, he goes, "Wedding's set for December. Let's just move it up." So we can do that. He's like, "Of course we can do that." We moved it up. And so for full disclaimer, we were virgins when we got married. We dated for 4 years, virgins when we got married. And so we moved it up. And so people were like, "Oh, I heard you moved the marriage up." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "We're having a shotgun wedding." Now, the term shotgun I thought was like, boom, shoot the gun, and you like go fast.
Oh man!
And so like, what happened? You moved the wedding up? I said, "Yeah, we're having a shotgun," because I heard that term. I didn't know what it meant. I'm like, boom. We were going from December to August, like, boom, here we go, shotgun, that's fast, let's run fast. And so I'm saying this to everybody, and then my roommate, I told my roommate, he's like, "Oh, okay." And Serenity came over, and he looks at her, and he said, "Well, congratulations, I guess. I heard you're moving the wedding up." And he looks at her tummy, and she's like, "Well, what?" He goes, "Well, Matt said you had a shotgun wedding." "A shotgun what?" So I was in the car with her. We're going to the pastor, and I came and I told him, and he goes, tell Pastor Earl what you said. I said, "Why are we telling people I have a shotgun wedding?" He goes, "Do you know what a shotgun wedding is?" I'm like, "Yeah." We're like, boom, you pulled the trigger, we're going. He's like, "No, that means she's pregnant." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And I was a youth director at that time at the church. And so anyway, he said, "I'll take care of it in the wedding, in the sermon. I'll take care of it." It was so that we still get a laugh about that, the shotgun wedding.
And my wife has had to explain to me so many idioms. Like I learned,
men are idiots.
I learned what a cardigan is from my wife. I knew what a shrew was. I knew what a shotgun was.
I know what a shrew is now. I had to look it up. I was Googling that when you guys were looking. I'm like, "Oh, okay." I typed in shrew and I see this little mouse. And I'm like, "How does that make sense? This little tiny little shrew mouse." And I'm like, "Oh no."
I think we need to be done now.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
I'm just hit the outro. I'm not gonna read the outro. We're done, right?
Well, I think never mind.
Never mind.
No,
okay.
I was just gonna say we should wrap this up decent. Like, Jesus says marriage is good. Christ in the church is the image that we're given. Christ is good. He's head over the church, and he does good things. He bled and died for her, and she submits to him. And it's a good arrangement. We should shoot for it. Okay, play the music.
Play the music. There we go.